All right, everyone. There's been a proliferation of black pillars lately. Yes, indeed. People who believe that all is doom and gloom, the sky is falling, and so forth. The USA is going to break apart and turn Byzantine style and shit like that. I would just like to remind you this is not particularly likely. We are not in the same age that we were a few hundred years ago. Most of the US population that is able-bodied are members of the militia. Over 100 million people, in fact. Now, that's a little bit different than having a few million people in your militia and then a handful of regulars. You also have different technology and things like that. This technology is a double-edged sword, admittedly. Sometimes it can be useful, sometimes it can be useless, sometimes it can be harmful, actually. Overall, though, the situation for the average US citizen is measurably better now than it was when our country was expanding and first founded. I do not believe that the United States will fall. Not anytime soon. Not within our lifetimes, anyway. Here's why. I've made this argument before. Empires typically last about 200 years. Now, of course, again, with modern technology, with nukes and shit like that, you can probably expand that out quite a bit. But we were not an empire until at a minimum the late 1800s. That's basically the cutoff point. Late 1800s, early 1900s. So that'd be a little bit more than 100 years. If the average empire lasts 200, we'll all be dead before the empire falls. I would argue, technically speaking, that the United States did not become an empire until at least the 1920s, and arguably after World War II. So that gives us a little bit longer. Your grandchildren will get to see the grandiose end of the empire, I suppose. But those of us who are alive today, we're not going to see the fall of the United States, in my personal opinion. This is a historical analysis. Now, an empire can last more than 200 years, of course. Some of them are more shorter lived. But typically, if they're shorter lived, that's the result of technological backwardness. For instance, maybe the Ottoman Empire, something like that. Yeah, you're fighting with spears and people are shooting at you with cannons. It's not going to work too well. Your Janissaries, yeah, they're not capable of taking care of things too well. Although actually, technically, it was the inverse. It's funny. Sometimes backward civilization can actually take down an empire. The Ottoman Empire began to rot out as soon as Vlad attacked, and all he did was use cavalry night raids and shit like that. And then impaled, several tens of thousands of people, including some of his own wounded men. But whatever. That's a different historical quota that we will talk about separately. I do not believe that the United States is faltering. I believe that it's perfectly healthy. It's the politics within the United States that are unhealthy. But we've been having debates over this sort of shit for 100 years. Well, yeah, well, 250 years at this point. We've already been having debates over what direction the country is going to go in and things like that. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and that's just sort of the way that it falls. The dominoes fall in different directions, so to speak. I do not believe the United States will fall. Also, then, again, you've got the militia. You've got people like me who will gladly die to defend the country. It's not just the goddamn military. There's 100 fucking million of us fuckers. What are you gonna do against us? That's gonna be real fun. I don't think that that's gonna happen. It's greater than the militaries of China and Russia combined. Not that I think that they'll be enemy combatants at all. We do too much trade with China. Russia's too busy doing other things right now. I would be more worried about the Europeans fucking invading. Yeah, that might be more actionable. The French invaded us. Well, they better bring their white flags with them. No offense to the French. I realize that France actually has a pretty good win-loss record within military endeavors, but or the Germans, will be goose-stepping through the street Sieg Heiling or something like that at any given time. I don't think that that's a problem. I don't think that that's something that we need to worry about. What we need to worry about is shoring up our domestic systems. That is the economy, the border, certainly our trade relations and things like that. I mean, that's technically domestic because you're producing things domestically and then you're trading them abroad. Technically, that is a foreign affairs topic, but it starts domestically. Hey, we raised this many chickens, or we raised this much grain, or something like that. We're capable of doing all of these wonderful things. We're capable of reforming our system to prolong the existence of empire, so to speak. But our empire cannot be said to have begun when the United States was first formed. Now, the original 13 colonies, impressive? Yes. Would they have been a stable economy? Yeah, they absolutely would be. But it really isn't at least until Thomas Jefferson and the Louisiana Purchase and the exploration of that particular land that we could even remotely be called an empire. Even then, our economy was backwards. Look at the War of 1812, for example. We were razed to the fucking ground. It took a cloudburst in order to rout the British. Their lines scattered because of some freak weather system. We're not entirely 100% sure exactly what happened. Apparently, it was some sort of tornado or some shit like that, a freak tornado. It isn't until after the Civil War that you can actionably state that the United States was an empire. But even then, while it was a power, it was not a great power. It was more like, hey, we've got clout, leave us alone. That was basically the way that it was after the antebellum slash Civil War period into the Gilded Age. It isn't until at least the 1920s and arguably after World War II that we became an empire. If that is true, statistically speaking, under normal circumstances, we should be able to go forward for the next 100 years. And I believe that that will actually happen. I believe that our best days are yet to come. You will get a Byzantine decline in the end. It is unavoidable, unfortunately. But I don't believe that it's coming anytime soon. I think that we'll all be dead. Every single person that watches this video will be dead, no matter what your age is, long before that actually happens. We are empire now. It is quite clear. But that empire should last, yeah, roughly the next 150 years. Something like that. It'll be around that particular range, if it ends at all. And it might end in fireballs with everyone in the world dying. So, hopefully, people just leave the United States alone. That would probably be for the best. That's about all. Peace out.